Greetings, salutations, howdy. Welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show here on Newsmax TV. The socialists in and out of the mainstream press, they are celebrating today. They have declared victory for their collectivist cause. Today's program will focus on the consequences of a sham election. Now, I say it's a sham because of the conduct of those tasked with righting some wrongs. They've failed to secure the vote. When we raised concerns over the corrupt process of universal mail-in voting, the corrupt court said, nothing has happened yet. There's no harm. Immediately after the election, sworn testimony and video brought to light secret ballot counting, GOP eyes prohibited from observing the count, and unexplained stoppages of election night counting. All of this just so happened to be in states that Joe Biden needed to win. Statisticians stated that, quote, the probability of the former vice president winning the popular vote in the 4 defendant states, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, independently, given President Trump's early lead in those states as of 3 o'clock in the morning on November 4th, 2020, is less than 1 in a quadrillion. Despite this and much more, the court said, well, you have no evidence. Now, after the Electoral College vote, the courts refused to rule on hundreds of thousands of suspected fraudulent votes, not because the court thinks the ballots are valid, but because now it's, quote, too late. This judicial jujitsu has fulfilled a prediction I made 2 days after the election, a prediction that will guide millions of Americans for years to come. If Beijing Biden succeeds in stealing this election, he will be an illegitimate president. A Biden occupation of the Oval Office will be illegitimate for all those reasons and simply because we don't like him or his leftist cronies. And that's really all the justification we need. The Democrat socialists, they showed us the way. Since the year 2000, socialist Democrats in and out of the media have declared GOP presidents and office holders illegitimate. Democrats have refused to concede their elections years after they lost. I see no reason for us to take the high road and give them any legitimacy, aiding them in their dark designs for our country. Socialist Democrats, enemies of American liberty and prosperity. That's where we begin in tonight's preamble. Yesterday, the Chris Salcedo Show featured the stories of victims of extremist Democrats, the business owners of America who have suffered mightily under unscientific and capricious lockdowns in liberal cities and states. The stories, well, they were heartbreaking. I was moved so much by those stories that I called up some financial experts I know, Trish Regan, Lance Roberts, and, I needed to get some data to sort through. Even though the business owners that we featured were from all over the country, they all had a common theme: Democrat stupidity, Democrat arrogance, and Democrat unfairness. Despite the World Health Organization and other more credible health experts' testimony that the lockdowns do more harm than good, hysterical and corrupt Democrats from all levels of government have instituted those lockdowns anyway. And many of these mental midgets have been caught violating their own mindless and draconian edicts. So that got us to thinking, why? Why are they doing this? There's some information you folks at home might find helpful. The reason why we conservatives care so much about the small business community here in the United States is because we care about the prosperity and longevity of the United States. That also is an indicator as to why so many liberal extremists don't care. According to the Small Business Administration, America's small businesses, they account for nearly a whopping 45% of our nation's total GDP. Now, depending on how you define a small business, there's consensus among economists that the small business community in our country is responsible for 70% of our nation's jobs. In other words, small businesses are crucial to the overall success of the United States. So why are socialist Democrats so eager to wipe out America's small businesses? For the answer to that, I think we have to examine how Democrat leaders have behaved in recent years. We know that high-profile Democrats have been targeted and compromised by the communist Chinese government. The vast majority of the Democrat Party has been silent on China's lies that have led to over 300,000 American deaths from the China virus. We know that American companies like Apple, Disney, and sports leagues like the National Basketball Association, big money interests that have nothing in common with our small businesses, that they have supported and protected China despite China's enslaving millions of people. robbing Hong Kong of their freedom and their continued threats toward Taiwan. Even the Democrats' so-called president-elect can't stop singing the praises of the most inhuman regime in modern history.
Want to see China rise, to continue to rise in a responsible way that will benefit you most, China, because you have an important role to play. A rising China can be a significant asset for the region and the world, and selfishly for the United States.
It's well known that China wants to supplant the United States as the world superpower. They want to dominate us militarily and impose their dark communist totalitarianism on the globe, just like their predecessors in the Soviet Union. But one nation has stood in their way, the United States, under President Trump. China seeks to weaken the United States. Everybody knows that. What better way to do that, though, than to intentionally spread a highly contagious virus, which China did, then have American politicians and CEOs who are loyal to China, not America, those in the Democrat Socialist Party, have them take out 45% of America's GDP. What better way to weaken the USA? To continue America's fall, China would influence the U.S. elections, as our national security officials claim they have done, to install a demented buffoon like Biden, who has deep financial ties to Beijing, by the way. The Democrats need to know America sees what they're doing. And those of us who value our rights, freedoms, and liberties, well, we must use those rights while we still have them by saying in a unified voice, we will not comply.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.